Hello, everybody. I listen first before I get started. If I sound to you like a PIMP, it's because I think I've got the microphone doing what I wanted to do now, and its placement's perfect, as in you can't see it. Like John Cena. So I struggled and debated whether I was going to waste the time with this particular project, but I think in my mission to keep people safe, it's kind of a self-imposed thing. I felt it was important to at least talk about it, if nothing else. Certainly the messaging was fine, but this was brought to attention. This is not, fortunately, not getting a lot of chatter on social media, thank goodness. But it's getting some, and I think some influencers are covering it, and I don't like that, care for it. It is what it is, but SAITAMA V3, let me just clarify, this is not official SAITAMA. It has nothing to do with SAITAMA Project, has nothing to do with the cult leader, has nothing to do with the Russ We Trust cult, has nothing to do with Cited Pro, nothing to do with any of that garbage. It's completely independent. And the story behind this was apparently, and I was told this separately too, that there was a disgruntled V1 investor for SAITAMA, didn't get the V2 airdrops, got pissed off and spun up a token. Listen, I have somewhat of a benefit. I have a perk, and that is because most of the people shilling this don't give a damn about me, like 50 Cent. They don't care about me. And chances are the person behind this doesn't care about me, and nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about Leicester. Nobody cares about Crypto Talk Radio, found at cryptotalkradio.net. It means I have a little bit of an advantage because I can talk about whatever the almost cussed heck I feel like talking about and not have to deal with answering or responding to any of those people. The downside, of course, is that, I would like to help if they're serious and legit, as always. I always, if they want that smoke, I want to help if they're serious. I don't know if they're serious. In this case, I don't think they're serious. I think their pain is serious. I don't think their endeavor is serious, and I'm going to tell them why. Let's roll some dice. Let's assume that this is actually a legit person. They mean well. They want to help the community. All's on the up and up. If they're on the up and up, right, and they believe that they can make a difference and they want to help people get back some of the money that they've lost because of the cult leader and the failures of the dev team for SAITAMA, the failed November 13th Vegas event. And it's the goodness of their heart, and I understand that, right? That's their motivation as stated in this paragraph here. Here's the thing. Let's assume that person happens to listen to this video. Listen, guy, lady, whatever. I don't know. I do, but I'm disappointed because I got one question for you. Again, a question for you, whatever that terrible song is. I know what compelled you. I don't want to ask it that way. Why did you not take the time? See, marketing is a science. And if you really want this to be successful, certainly there had to be more common sense placed on the decision for the name than to simply call it SAITAMA anything. Because you already know that SAITAMA is a bad word in the minds of people in the ecosystem. But because you know that you're catering this to those in the SAITAMA ecosystem, I question why you would use a bad word to appeal to them. I saw that you put the new image. Great. That means you could have called it any damn thing else you wanted. You could have called it Wolf Hudson and you probably made something off that, as evident by the fact you only got 200 holders at the point. If there were 300,000 total at some point in SAITAMA, by now, a week later, I would have assumed you'd have at least 1,000, and you don't yet. You might get there, but you're going to have to fight past silly, basic things because of your choice of naming it SAITAMA V3. Number one, you come across as a scam because you associated it to SAITAMA. Number two, you gave it a bad word as a name. Number three, you copied the look and feel, which makes you look scummy and scammy. Number four, you got shillers fresh out of the gate hyping the thing over nothing but price. So I understand your thought process. It is fundamentally flawed. And I'm telling you, you could have named this anything else and you probably would have been more successful doing the same thing. So that's mistake number one, is you chose a bad word as the name because SAITAMA has a bad taste in people's mouths. They don't want to hear or see anything about the word SAITAMA, even if you might have the best of intentions. Like, I don't know you. I don't know if you had the best of intentions or not. I'm telling you, this name is stupid. It made no dang sense to call it SAITAMA anything because, as you know, people don't like SAITAMA at all. It doesn't. So now you're going to have to sell yourself as to why you're different. Then you force people to your telescam to learn more about the business. You have people asking fundamental questions about you, and then you're saying, you don't need that, and you want people to say, well, trust me because I burned $7,000, or trust me because it's renounced, or trust me because I locked the wallet, or trust me because of this. It's trust me, trust me, trust me. When at the end of the day, if you had simply, there was a same gentleman on the ship side, and he got pissed off because ship crapped, and he spun up what became known as Entis Enu. And he straight said, I'm trying to help everybody who's tired of ship, doing it wrong, and show how it's done right. He does an airdrop to everybody that's a ship holder. Many people dump off, but there are people that buy in because they're curious, LSG 2000. And he gets some traction. He gets it on exchanges. He does all this stuff. And then one day he quits and then goes to this garbage called FitScript, which I guess is terrible. But the point is, when you try to do this and have the best of intentions, the level of success you're going to get is predicated off of your marketing strategy. And I believe you were flawed out the gate because you named it a bad word. You hooked it into a failure of a project by name. You're using their font script garbage, and you didn't stand out to just simply say we are a different token that is trying to help people who are in the Sama ecosystem, and call it any damn thing else. And that would have been smarter, better, more logical to me. So that's my message if that person's listening. I doubt they are. And again, my advantage is none of the other influencers give a damn about me, so I can call whatever I want. So then the whole thing around this token is the reflections. That they're talking about you're getting reflections. And I listened to one of the videos from one of the influencers, and it went something like, and I'm paraphrasing, but it went something like, why do you care if it's up or down? It don't matter. It's all volume. Volume gets you paid. You're going to get the reflections anyway. Doop. I understand the thought process. I do. I have heralded the importance of volume myself. It is only one factor of many factors, and you can't just say all volume is good volume. If everybody dumps, if everybody sells, which it currently is trending down, at some point you're going to run out of money to be able to give to people because you're giving too many reflections. Right now, it's a low number of holders, so it sounds good, but as you scale up, and then those large holders start to dump off of it because they're going to, because it's smart, you're not going to be able to pay those reflections sustainably. I can count many tokens that have done the same. They thought it sounded good, and then eventually it just wasn't sustainable, and they had to cut how much they were paying in reflections. Now, the fact that you're doing stablecoin, sure, that buys you a little bit of time, but the point is you're going to need to at some point kind of cut off your own nose and gut your own supply and sell it to keep this thing going, because it's not you can't just bank on just that. You got to have something else that it does. And if you don't, you're somewhat misleading people. That's my point is I don't think this is well thought out. It sounds good, but many tokens have come and gone where all they said was, we're going to give you rewards. Shiba Fever, off the top of my head, Shiba Fever, Santa Coin, Boda V2, which isn't dead, but it might as well be. All points. Shyborg is another one. Tons, countless. BNB rewards token, tons. But it's all they do, and they don't sustain because at some point you're going to run out of money if you can't get more buy volume. It's not just volume. You got to have a healthy blend of buy and sell. Right now, you don't have healthy buy volume because unfortunately your marketing strategy sucks and you are not getting the inbound velocity you expected because you banked on naming it SAITAMA something as an attraction when really it might have been a turnoff. And my theory is it's a turnoff people. And that was a bad decision. I understand what you did, but you should have thought it through before doing that because you could have been on something. So then I said, well, given what that is, right? Is that really a major issue? Is there something else more to this? And, what's really going on under the hood here, folks, right? So I looked at the graph, and the whole big pitch from all the influencers is, well, it started at a penny, get to a nickel, and then it skyrocketed to a dollar, deep, 1,000x, deep. Of course, they don't know how to count. But regardless of this, because if it started at a penny, right? If it started at a penny, and I don't know that it truly did, it might have started at half a penny. But the point is, if it started at a penny, so July 7th, whenever they loaded the liquidity. So let's say it says 2 cents People say it's a penny. Let's say it's a penny. Okay. If it starts at a penny and gets as high as $1, in this case, it says 70 cents because that's when it closed. 70 cents, or I'll give you the dollar, whatever. So a penny, right? 10 cents. Okay. $1. Okay. That's 1,000. That's right. But the problem is that you're not accounting for cells in the middle of this. So in how it climbs, you have these dump periods. And you would have needed to hold it all the way through beyond this initial dump in order to really realize that. And this didn't last very long. I'm not suggesting that there weren't people that did 1000X. I'm saying that it's somewhat misleading to present that as realistic, unless if you knew day one it was a thing and your marketing was solid, and it really would only have applied to the first in, because as we always know what happens, there's almost always that pump and dump pattern. Why? Because every time there's a new token, those who knew about it first are going to get the best price, and then it's going to crap. They all follow that pattern. And when you try to do fancy gimmicks like Lock Pay from Car Salesman 2.0 or SafeJet from Car Salesman 3.0, ultimately somebody's going to find a way around it, and it's going to eventually crap. It just may take longer. So while it is somewhat accurate that there were some people that were able to get that money, they're long gone. And they're likely not going to buy into the project. And chances are, many of them are those influencers. So would I advocate? No, because the major profit's already been taken. Now it has one redemption point, which is that they have done some burns to try to help things. It's early in its game. My only point, my biggest beef with this person, this guy, these guys, whatever, is that they named it SAITAMA anything, because I think that was the death knell for them. When they could have named it anything else, and if they had named it anything else with the supply, because it's a very heavily constrained supply, if they had named it anything else, it would have gone at least 10x higher from where it is. But I believe that people see that it's crapping, and now they're skeptical because it's not upward sustained. The holder count is not significantly growing. So now it's 200 as of the last I looked at it. Let's refresh and see how many they've added as I've been talking and see if that number's gone up tremendously or not at all. And the number is actually gone down by 2. Do you know why? Because people are dumping off the project because they already have their profit, which is what expected to happen because we're already past that dream period of making major bucks. But some of the cells even are small cells. So people don't see that there's an opportunity to make any money now because it's already past that glory point. These were already at the top, have been at the top for over a day and a half. And that's because everybody who needed to make good money has made good money. So I find it misleading to present that figure. So then I decided to look at the fundamentals. I looked at the site, gave a high level. There's literally nothing else here. There's no white paper at all. There's nothing beyond it other than we have this great idea and we want to try to help you make some rewards. No fundamentals, nothing behind it, a generic Gmail account. That's a nitpick, but it bothers me. And then, of course, they force you to telescan for things. So now I'm like, okay, well, I ran a scan of the contract. Contract is a generic contract that was copied from past failed projects. I can't necessarily say that they were scams, but I will say that they were failed projects. One of said failed projects is SHIB rear wheel drive. And it's RWD. I don't know what the heck that means, but I think it's rear wheel drive. SHIB RWD, SHIB rear wheel drive has still a market cap of almost 100,000. So that caught my eye because it's the same contract. It's the same contract as this SAITAMA V3. So their site is dead. So I know the project doesn't exist, but it's still being traded as of 8 days ago. Well, that catches my eye. What the heck's going on there? And in some cases, there's movement of massive amounts of supply. But the CoinMarketCap, and I see, yep, pump and dump. And turns out the RWD stands for rewards. Well, that's interesting. If I look here at John De Prato, as of March 21st, and March 21st is actually an important date, by the way. March 21st, amazing project, contract renounced and 6% reflections. I went back to SAITAMA V3 and we get 3% reflections here. 2% to the marketing wallet, but 3% reflections. SHIB rewards is 6% reflections. 6% reflections. And then I looked up and says, this guy, Net Crypto YouTube, or lady, whatever, called this as a scam on the channel back in January. Now the chart looks sad, and that was as of May. May, of course, that's, close to 2 or 3 months. And then we got a couple people that say, awesome project, thanks to the project, looks good because it's hopium. Because if you look at the chart, that SHIB rewards, and I remember this by name, and I completely ignored it. It got to that peak way up here with significant volume, and then it dumped, and it's never recovered. And then the volume is still kind of somewhat there, but somewhat not, because people are it's hopium. Most have abandoned it by now, but there was a lot of hopium for months on this guy. Because it had the pump and dump, it gave hope, and folks, I suspect that's what you're going to see at some point with this SAITAMA V3, is a hopium type graph of pump and dump caliber. It's not able to sustain. And any of those that likely ignore me, if they weren't ignoring me, would say it's different because our supply is way lower. And it is true that this SHIB rewards had a significantly higher supply, 600 trillion in leftover because they'd done burns. So that is true that that's part of it. But it's less about the supply and more about how are you able to continually convince people to buy your product? How could you convince people to keep buying? It's not just, that's what I'm saying. It's not just about volume. You got to have buy pressure, buy volume and sell pressure, not just volume. It's more than that. And if you don't, at some point, again, people are going to see that the chart's not recovering and they're going to go after some of the project. And I believe, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, and I know this person refuses to dox, and that's fine. But if that person happens to be listening to this and they want that smoke, it's too late now for this. But you had something here. You could have simply spun up a different token that had a different name, a different strategy, arguably a different contract, and I'll get to that in a second in my closing, and you might have had something big here. You could have really done something good because I think your intentions might have been good. Now, here's where I think you've got a problem and why I would never recommend anybody buy into this outside of the fact that it's SAITAMA. So then knowing that it's the same contract as this SHIB rewards, this is my closure, folks. Knowing it's the same contract, I decided to look a little bit deeper and see if there was anything specifically wrong with said contract that would cause me to be alarmed at what it's doing. So I took this contract, which is, and people can, call me a liar, but here's the contract address ending in E4B. So you're free to follow along yourself, and I encourage you to do so. So I pulled this guy up and decided to hit contract, and I see, yeah, people are crazy doing something. And there's a lot of duplicates. And usually that's bot activity, but I'm not going to say it is. I'm just saying usually. And I looked at the contract stuff, right? And this is pretty standard stuff. I don't see anything that's crazy in this view of the contract. This is not the view I really would use. I'm just saying in this, I don't see anything that's crazy, bad, or risky necessarily on the read side. On the right side, we have some concerning stuff, nothing crazy. Things like the exclusion dividends, There's a renounced ownership function. And if you were to verify who the current owner is, it is indeed a zero-based address. And I didn't see a function that would allow them to reclaim it. So from a renounced perspective, there's nothing specifically wrong with it. If I go to this view then, and I hit contract, this is where it tells you it's basically the same code as something else. This anti-bot baby token is a reused contract. And there's a couple of notes in here from the contract. And here's what caused me some concern. I'm actually going to do probably a search because it's probably faster. All right. Supply mechanism has to be added in derivatives. And function mint. Anybody that's followed my video about Seifu from the car salesman will recall that I called out function mint in their contract as well. And the fact that it's here is a concern depending on how it's used. So the fact that it's renounced means that it should not be executable by anybody because it's renounced, right? The way that this is written, this function mint, is it's actually minting to the zero base address. So it's minting, what should be happening is it's minting to a nothing place. Okay, so that means nobody's being enriched by function mint. But the problem is that because of the way that they're doing the burn, function burn, right? They're sending the burn, looks like to the zero address. And so what people don't really know, the reason I like to see an actual burn execute as in destroy, as opposed to a transfer to a zero address, is that the tokens that are sitting inside of the burn wallet, the zero wallet or the dead wallet, they are collecting reflections if you have a reflection mechanic, as I believe this one does. But that it's also, unfortunately, by default, counted in the total supply. It's counted in the supply. And so what happens is you have to tell these different tools to exclude certain addresses so that they're not counted in circulating supply. What we've seen is that that doesn't always work like you think. So SHIB, to tell the story, and the reason I said antecedent, SHIB had a certain thing happen where roughly 200 trillion tokens were magically added back to its circulating supply. And it's because CoinMarketCap did an audit of some kind and they determined, no, your circulating is being misrepresented. It's not true. These are not being properly burned. You thought they were, they're not. They're actually part of your circulating. And it turns out that, yes, they were being held by active wallets. So then the problem is that then the price gets jacked up for SHIB and it's never recovered. So I don't like to see function mint, even if it's sending to a zero-based wallet, if you're burning to said wallet, because that means your supply is kind of out of whack. Which is why I said that if that person is listening to this video and wants to smoke, these are the kinds of things that I would talk through and say, if you are legit and serious and you want to try to really help people, you could have created a transformative token by not just taking the contract as is, but actually modifying it according to cleaner mechanics so that you eliminate all that risk, right? And say, we want to have it truly be a clean contract, not just a renounced contract. Renouncing doesn't do anything. You could still steal from the contract. It doesn't matter. You could still steal from the process. So the fact that he's giving up the lock the wallet, that's great. Locking all that, that's great. You can still have buddies that bought in early and then they dump off of it. The risk isn't gone. There's ways that you can mitigate the risk. What I see doesn't fully mitigate the risk. They're doing just enough at a high level, but it doesn't absolve the risk. So I would never recommend that you buy into it, obviously, because it's SAITAMA, but also because I don't think it went far enough to keep people safe. In my opinion, if you are a gambler, and I say this multiple times, if you're Kenny Rogers, you want to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run, I do not begrudge you the temptation to FOMO into it. You are free to gamble. I'm not telling you what to do or not to do. I'm saying from my lens, I think the person behind this made some critical mistakes, and I would not recommend anybody buy into it because of those mistakes, even if you do get reflections, because I don't think it's just about reflections. I think it's about sustainability. Is it a sustainable project? Is it going to be around for the long term? Or do I suspect that it's dead in the water because of the way it's built? I think it's dead in the water because of the way it's built, even though the idea might have worked if it was built correctly. Like the idea of doing USDC reflections has been done before, but there are other issues where nobody's been able to sustain it. Even Libero, or F-Libero in this case, tried to do it, and they eventually switched away from it because of technical issues. And I guarantee you, those devs are way more advanced than whoever wrote that contract. So this quote, SAITAMA V3, that's my thoughts on it. I, again, am not telling you what to do with your money. I'm telling you, I think this person made a critical mistake at a critical hour where they could have done much better. And if they really are serious about helping people, they could have just launched a different token with a different name and still done the same appeal and still made it work and might have actually sold it to where you got a lot more people on board and then it had more value, in my opinion. Maybe you spin up a different token and try to do it again. I don't know. Or you completely ignore Crypto Talk Radio. That's your right too.